Metropolitan Nashville Audit Committee meeting. Today is September 13th, 2022. Our illustrious chairman, Mr. Brack Reed, is not here, and our vice chairman is also not here. So I received a call to ask me if I would chair the meeting, but it's my understanding that we may need a motion for me to do that. Is that right?
Ideally, yes. When the chair and vice chair are both absent, it's best for the commission to elect one of its remaining members to serve as chair in the interim.
So I would be happy to let you all chair if you'd like.
Well, I move that you chair.
There you go.
Is that second?
Okay, so motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, no? No. Okay, so the motion passes, so thank you. Thank you for the vote of confidence. I've always wanted to chair this meeting. Really. All right, so I'm calling this meeting to order, and we will, the next item is the approval of the minutes from June 28th, 2022. If you all had a chance to look at them. And if so, then I would need a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The minutes are approved. All right, so let's get on into the agenda. And I do want to recognize that Councilmember Courtney Johnston is here, and I don't see any other council members here. So the first item under new business is discussion on Councilmember Courtney Johnston's request for an audit of the Community Foundation's receipts and distributions of funds related to the Metro Nashville disasters. And so for purposes of this, I would turn it over to Ms. Reilly.
Yes. We received back in August a request for an audit of the Community Foundation's receipts and distributions related to 4 different disasters within Metro Nashville. That would be the 2010 floods, the 2020 tornado, the Christmas Day bombing, and the 2021 flood. The funds were not directly given to the Community Foundation from Metro Nashville. However, they were directed to directing citizens under the MOU between Community Foundation and Metro for those funds to be given to the Community Foundation. We received this request, and the first thing that we did with it was look over the MOU that was provided, and due to the unique situation of this MOU and the fact that it is an older MOU and not one that we are accustomed to, we turned it over to our legal representative, Terry, to kind of give us an understanding of whether or not we could audit these funds. So I'll let Terry talk about legal's perspective on the MOU.
So our position was that the MOU is a contract, and that Metro Code Section 224-300H provides that all entities contracting with the metropolitan government shall cooperate fully with the Metropolitan Auditor doing any such review or request to the fullest extent of applicable law. So based on that, we would give the opinion that yes, they are subject to being audited by the Metropolitan Auditor.
And what is that, I guess the question I would have is, what does that mean in terms of, are there different ways to do this? Do we have the ability or the authority to do a full audit? What are the possibilities at this point?
So that the audit is one, assuming that they would allow us. If not, then it would be turned over to litigation for us to be able to enter with our office, sending in an audit team to perform an audit. And that audit, we would set the objectives. We would decide what we were going to look at, request the documentation, and we would do it. While Terry was looking into this, we were starting to research other options and looking to see what else anybody within Metro had done, and that's when we came across that the Department of Finance and the Office of Financial Accountability had actually already done some work with the Community Foundation around similar concerns. And so they had been communicating with the Community Foundation and requesting information to a point. The Community Foundation decided at a certain point to stop providing information and instead offered to have their external auditors at the cost of the Community Foundation to perform an agreed upon procedures. Agreed upon procedures is not the same as an audit. That would be where we would set the scope. We would tell them certain things to look into. They could push back on this, but we would try to set the scope that They would then have their external auditors looking into it, and then we would receive a report. The report wouldn't have conclusions, so our audits have conclusions about whether or not objectives are met. Agreed upon procedures do not have any conclusions, opinions, they are just statements of fact. So there is that option that finance and the administration had been talking to the Community Foundation about. There had been no steps forward to take to actually go further with it due to this request. So that's on the table as well. So those are the two options, are the audit or the agreed upon procedures.
Councilmember Hurt.
So if those agreed upon procedures is acceptable, can you ask for recommendations or findings and all of the things that would be in a typical audit?
They would not. So agreed upon procedures are very strict in the fact that it's just statements of fact. We looked at this, we found this, we've looked at this. There's no conclusions that are necessarily drawn from it. We could, if we did go that route, we would receive the report. One, we would be involved in helping to set those agreed upon procedures. Two, we would be getting the report, reviewing it ourselves, and we would bring it back to you all to go through it with the audit committee, to go through what they have found. Now, we can draw our own conclusions, but the external auditors that perform the work would not draw those conclusions.
So could we ask for a full external ask for an audit by their external auditor, and you all review the findings that they present?
We could ask, but most likely that would not be able to happen because audit has to be very independent. If they are performing their external audit, they are most likely not going to be independent to perform a full internal audit like we would. You can go through, it's a big enough firm that they could probably maybe get some safeguards in place and have different teams do it, but I couldn't speak to whether or not they could.
Okay, thank you.
Would you all, Councilmember Johnston is here. She made the request. Is it okay if I open the floor up? And would you like to make any comments about what the request is for and what you're interested in finding out?
Sure. So I got involved when my district was hit so hard with the March floods in 2021 and had several constituents that were guided to not only give to the Community Foundation, but also to request support for a multitude of things. And in fact, it was very open-ended. Do you need money for your deductible for your flood insurance? Do you need a washer dryer? Do you need a car? Put whatever it is. And I don't know of any of my constituents that actually received that support. And through the process of our response, in the weeks after that response, the question constantly and consistently was, where is the money? Where is the money? I mean, people are sitting there needing help, and we have this function that should be provided by this certain organization, and nobody could figure out where the money was. And then we were told, well, we're trying to identify our community partners, and there was always sort of an excuse. And then the more I started asking questions, I asked other council members that had dealt with the tornado what their experience was, and they said they had asked, they'd never gotten any answers. I talked to folks in Metro Finance that said, we have asked questions, we've never gotten any answers. I've talked to people in the administration, we've asked, we've never gotten any answers. I've asked. I did get a report just last week that's very high level and not necessarily in the detail that I would want to satisfy my desire for the accountability that I think that we're owed. And so I appreciate that they're willing to do this external, whatever that is. I just feel like since 2010, there's been zero accountability. There's been zero true reporting. And the MOU, and I'm happy to pass it around, and I've highlighted where they are required to do some things that has not been done. And so technically they're in breach. So I would prefer for us, for this for our internal audit to go in and find out where this money has gone, who has received it, and what it was actually used for, and not something like, well, it was for the recovery of the March 2021 flood. To me, that's not good enough. Did it rebuild someone's house? Did it buy someone a car? Did it help, was it a cash payment for deductibles? What was it? If it went to an organization within the community that was helping individuals, what did that money go to? And I think we owe it to ourselves, we owe it to our community, to people that have donated money. A lot of people don't have a lot of money to give, but they wanted to give to support their community. So we owe them that transparency and accountability, but we also owe the people that are in need, that are still in need. We still have people that are in need, I'm hearing, from the tornado, much less the flood. And so it's like, where did that money go? This is a really important function that the Community Foundation provides as it relates to our disaster response, because it all comes back to where's the money, right? I mean, whatever it is someone needs, whether it's a roof over their head or food or transportation, someone has to pay for whatever those supplies or support is. So the money is probably the most important function in our disaster response. And so Lauren called and asked, they've offered to do this. Is this okay with you, or do you still want internal audit to perform? And the answer is yes, I still want internal audit to perform. I don't think that I have enough trust after years and years of stonewalling for this information. I don't have enough trust that what they're agreeing to do is going to satisfy what I think we owe to ourselves and owe to our community.
Questions?
Yeah, do we have the bandwidth in internal audit to get it done, or would you have to secure an external auditor to assist you?
We can shift some people around, and we have the bandwidth down that we can make them available.
And who makes the decision whether or not we do the internal audit? Is that a committee decision?
That would be you all.
Yeah, I think it sounds like we have a request. I guess there may be three options. One is that we don't do anything.
Yes, but I will say that from our recommendation, there's something should be done.
Right.
Just there is enough need for it.
So the second one, if I've got this right, is this agreed upon procedures where it's more limited.
Yes.
And it's, I think what we do is we ask a series of questions. Is that right?
We say, look into this and this and this, and their external auditors would take that and do the work. We wouldn't see the stuff behind the work. We would only see the outcome of it. But it'd be very narrow as far as kind of like when we did our vendor audits,
Okay.
And hired some external contractors to do those. We gave them specific instructions.
And I guess my question would be, how limited? So, I mean, if you ask a question and say, okay, so based upon the council members' questions and concerns, we're trying to track where did the money go, who did it help, specific instances of specific help. Would you get that in something like this? Or would you really have to be very careful with your questions in order to make sure that you drill down far enough to find out what you're looking for?
I don't know that we would get that specific of information through an agreed upon procedures. We would get their, probably not even their assurance, because they can't even give assurance and agreed upon procedures, but they would say, we looked at this and we know it went here, but we would not be able to confirm. We would be relying on the other external party, their work.
In that situation, like what you hope with any other auditors, they're supposed to be doing this work and doing it correctly and properly and according to certain standards. But it still may not get far enough to answer concerns that people might have.
Yes, and there's no guarantee that the agreed upon procedures that we ask them to perform, that they would not push back or that they would agree to all of them.
They would not agree?
We don't know if they would or not, because we haven't gone down the path of presenting them with, because at the end of the day, they could say, no, we're not going to look into that.
Do they have that choice?
With the agreed upon procedures, since they would be paying the external auditors to do it, they would.
So I'm just concerned if taxpayers' money is going to be utilized in doing something that they can't do, and they pay for it themselves, and we still come away with the information that the council member is requesting?
If they do it, would we come away with the same information? We don't know until the end of it. And that would be one of the caveats of it is we would get the report, we would review it. There's still the potential it's insufficient. There's still the potential that all concerns are not addressed. And that then we go the route of, well, now we want you to pursue an audit, because an audit will get us those answers.
So I guess I understand that about the agreed upon procedures, but could we not request a full audit? I know there are different levels of audits that are done, but could we request a full audit from their external auditor that would consist of all of the information that we need that will satisfy the information that the council member is looking for?
We could request it, but as I mentioned earlier, their external auditors would probably say they're not independent to perform it. So then you could request that they hire another third party to perform it with the same level. We could request it. There's no guarantee that they would agree to that because it has not been requested yet.
And so the MOU doesn't force them to comply with the request of the audit committee if we decide that we want a full audit
I don't
performed?
believe the MOU has an audit
So
clause in
it
it.
does not, but it does have a general requirement that they have to comply with all federal, state, and local laws. And the provision that I referred to earlier in 224-300H does specifically say that all entities contracting with the metropolitan government must cooperate with the metropolitan auditor. And so we would take the position that the law requires them to do it.
So I've looked at that contract. It's been several weeks, but I thought there were provisions about making sure that things were being reported back and transparency and things like that. So based upon your legal analysis and a review of the contract, and with the statutory authority, you think we have the authority to ask for our internal auditors to review their information and what they've got?
I do. I mean, obviously, they will have their own legal advisor and their own opinion on whether I'm right about that.
Yeah.
But I believe our department is confident that, we would deal with that if we had to. Another option might be some sort of contingent motion where you, because certainly if you do want to vote to do the audit, you would have to vote to amend the audit plan, since you set the audit plan, to include this new audit in it. But you could maybe move to do that, like contingent upon there not being an ability to work out a sufficiently thorough alternative agreed upon approach between Metro and the CFMT.
So I guess, that's one option, is to try to get the questions asked through, would it be done through internal audit, working with the community foundation and saying, okay, these are the questions that we want you to answer, which is part of this agreed upon procedures, the format. So I guess maybe there's two parts to it. One is that they can say, we're not doing that. We're not doing that at all. The second would be, I guess we could do this, and let's say they said, okay, then they do their review and they give us information back, and we go, that's simply not sufficient, and then we then say we're going to do a full review, a full internal audit. So we have a couple different processes.
I guess I'm confused on how they have the choice to say that they are not going to do it. And I think the compromise is allowing them to actually execute a full audit, providing us with all the information necessary. And then you review it, and that way the taxpayers, your staff can be used to do all of the enormous amount of work that you have to do anyway, and then you review what it is that's been done and not spend the time that it would take in order to execute a full audit.
Chair, in a way, I agree with you, Councilwoman Hurd. I don't want to spend taxpayers' funds and use our staff. However, because we use the Community Foundation for everything, when there's any type of disaster and we need to pull together as a community, we lend a lot of credibility to them as a city.
True.
And so I want a full audit on the front end. I don't like the agreed upon procedures route. And though it wouldn't be my preference to get it done, I don't mind our folks doing it because we're lending our name and our reputation as a city when we use the Community Foundation. So I'm not opposed to us doing the work to make sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing.
So I remember, as the city, we asked people to donate this way. So it wasn't, it's not like we're taking taxpayer funds that went to Metro government and moved them over. But we talked to our citizens and everybody else involved and said, if you're going to donate funds, which we need, this is the way to do it. So we directed people to donate to the Community Foundation of Middle Tennessee. And we have a MOU that says that. One other question. I thought any group, and maybe this goes to the statute, I thought any group that contracted with Metro government where money is involved, and in this case, Metro is not giving them money, but in almost every contract that I remember seeing, there's that requirement that we can go in and audit.
Usually that is in our standard contract language, but because this was drafted in the form of an MOU, that might not have been thought of. I wasn't directly involved in the drafting of it, so I can't say.
And this MOU goes back to 2008?
12.
Is that right?
2012.
2000.
Let me take one of my many glasses and see.
Oh, you don't trust me? You need some full transparency?
Yeah, I wanted full transparency. 2012, okay. Okay, so that contract's been in existence for over 10 years. All right. All right, discussion? Councilmember Hurd?
Well, again, I agree wholeheartedly with what Councilmember Toombs is saying, and considering that I have been in a place where I've had a Metro contract or memorandum of understanding, and there was auditing done, I understand. And also, I realize that there may be questions, and I believe in the full transparency and the accountability. And I do think that too many of our departments do not have the accountability that we want and need them to have. So I do think that having full disclosure of all of this would be appropriate and in order. But because the Community Foundation has been a great partner to the city, wanted to give them an opportunity, and we not use our staff, but have a reputable company to do a full audit of what has been done and report back to our Metro audit, and you all determine what will happen after that. I understand that it'll be a vote to do.
So can we give them that option, and if they refuse, then we do our own internal audit?
So is the question, I think I've got this, what you're asking is for them to have a full review and pay for it themselves. An external auditor would do a full review of what our questions, not this limited one, but
Exactly.
a full one.
Exactly.
We would ask them that, and then if they said no, then we'd come back at the next meeting, or we could have a contingency motion and say, if they're not going to do it, then we are.
Yeah, with the understanding that our auditors will review what the external auditors have done.
Okay. Yes.
Sorry.
Councilmember.
If we are going to go that route, which I agree, let's take the burden off of our staff having to do that if they can get it done. Can we be at the table as far as guiding and directing that audit, because there's audits and then there's audits. And so when the third party is paying for their audit, that's their client. And so they're going to do what the Community Foundation tells them to do and answer and look into those things, not necessarily what we want them to. So can we have those set of questions or those things that you would typically look for, bullet pointed out to say, look, this is what we want to know specifically, so that that's put into their audit?
We should be able to do that, especially if we're working with them to have them allowed, like, to cover this, then I would think that we would have the authority to at least kind of somewhat set the scope or sign off on the scope of whatever audit they decide to do before it gets actually executed. Another option is we do have our contractors on file. We have our 3. One of them is their external auditor, so we could not use them. But then we have 2 others that we could use and have them cover the cost of that. Throw that out there as an option, since those 2 firms, those 2 other contractors that we have are reputable firms that we have worked with before, and they would work with us.
I like that idea.
We would offer those other 2 to them and let them choose one of the 2.
I mean, I don't know if you want to let them choose or just, but at least those 2.
Okay.
But they pay for it.
Right.
Yes, but they would ask them to cover the
And then if they refuse that, then we just say, okay, fine, we'll do it ourselves.
I mean, we're talking about a lot of money here.
potentially.
It was,
Millions.
Exactly.
I think it was over 10 million
Yeah.
that was raised. And so sounds like we could get the right questions addressed, and then put together this offer to say, okay, so we've got 2 external auditors. You can choose one, or we'll just pick one, and then you will do it. I think one of the questions I would have, though, is still, and this maybe goes back to what auditors do. I mean, it's important to find out the answers, one way or the other. I mean, to figure out what happened, and is the money accounted for? So you would expect any auditors doing this, even if they are an external auditor that works for a particular entity, isn't that their responsibility to go to track it and be able to tell people what happened? So I would, that concern about, obviously if a lawyer represents their client, but an auditor also represents their client, but the auditors are supposed to use that ethical standard, whatever that is, to say, this is what happened, this is what we found.
My concern was more about them being able to limit the scope, because they are the ones paying for it, so they can say, okay, look into this, this, and this, but not this, this, and this. These are our questions. These aren't their questions about their own distributions. These are questions that we have on behalf of our community and constituents, and so that would be my concern. If they're paying for it, they drive the scope. I want us to drive the scope.
Councilmember.
I first want to thank you, well, maybe second or third of my comments. I want to thank you for your proactivity here, because I think it's very important, and I've seen Metro audit some organizations for not even 1% of what the Community Foundation has received. And when I say truly audited, combed through it very finely. So for you to even have this and present it I appreciate you.
Can I respond to that?
Sure.
Because when this started coming out, there were so many people that called and emailed and actually sent snail mail to the council office to me, thanking me for asking these questions. So it's not just my questions. There is a pretty significant amount of distrust throughout the community, because it really struck a nerve with folks when the news story came out, and now that we're having apparently more frequent disasters, we need to get this in line, because these disasters aren't going to stop. I mean, every meteorologist will tell you we're going to continue to have have bad storms, flooding, this very volatile situation. And so we need to be prepared for it. And this, like I said, is a very, very important aspect, the most important aspect of our disaster response. And so, yeah, people are asking questions. People want to know, and they deserve to know.
Well, again, thank you for that.
All right. You want to make a motion? I think I know where this is going, but would you like to make a
I
motion?
move that we require the Community Foundation to choose an external auditor from our list of contractors, the 2 people on our contract list, and pay the expense of that entity doing a, complete audit? What's the?
Internal audit.
Internal audit.
Second.
Yeah, all right. So I thought you were going to go further. Is there contingency in there?
Yeah. Then our audit department will do the internal audit.
So it would be added to the audit plan?
Sure.
Good answer. Okay. Is that okay as a second?
It's the second.
Okay, so discussion on the motion. I just need to say that in my day job, I'm the CEO of Safe Haven Family Shelter, and we participate in the Big Payback, and we in the Giving Tuesday. So we do have a connection on that side. I just want to disclose that for the record. But in this capacity, I'm acting as Vice Mayor and as a member of the Metropolitan Audit. So I'll vote.
Yeah, well, in full disclosure,
I started, so I figured you would.
so I was previous the CEO of the Jefferson Street United Merchants Partnership that also was heavily impacted and received funding that we were able to help distribute to some of the businesses, as well as serving as the Executive Director of Streetworks that also was heavily impacted. So full disclosure there as well.
Okay, thank you. I think this is important. I mean, obviously, I appreciate Councilmember Johnston bringing it and staying with it. We've been talking about this because we were, obviously, the tornadoes and the floods had a tremendous impact on what was going on in the city. And a lot of people suffer the consequences of those disasters, and I think it's important because it's bound to happen again. So we want to make sure that the money is accounted for and is spent appropriately. So, any other discussion? We're on the motion of Councilmember Toombs. It was properly seconded. We'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion is adopted unanimously. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember. All right. The next thing I've got on the agenda is a discussion on a request from the Circuit Court Clerk, the new one, Joseph P. Day. It's a new day. To request for a transitional audit of the Circuit Court Clerk. And it was received in the Internal Auditor's Office on September 2nd, 2022. It's right after he took office. So do we have people here from Joseph Day's office? Okay. Where's Mr. Day?
He's at a clerk's conference.
Already on a clerk's conference. Learning how to become a clerk.
Proper training.
Yeah, proper training. Okay, so this is a typical thing. Usually when somebody takes office in a new office, they'll ask for an internal audit.
Yes.
So, Ms. Reilly, any comments?
This is, as Vice Mayor said, this is as typically new department heads or elected officials will request us to come in and do an audit of the department, kind of to give them a clean slate to start off of, any areas where we see improvements, something for them to start with. And so this is something that we would recommend putting on the audit plan. I put a tab on your workbooks so that you can look at the audit plan, so that I can recommend that if you see number 18, it is the criminal court clerk. We put this on our audit plan just because we haven't been to the criminal court clerk's office in a very long time. Circuit court clerk is the exact same. I think they're slightly a little more recent, but still it's been a while since we've been to the circuit court clerk. Because of that, and so that we can kind of stay on path with our audit plan, I would recommend that we remove the criminal court clerk. We'll look at it next year, and we replace it with the circuit court clerk so that we can go on and do it this year.
Okay. questions, comments from the Circuit Court Clerk's office?
We'd just be very appreciative if you would approve it.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Okay. I think we need a motion on this one, right? Because we're doing two things. We're amending the audit plan, and then we're adding this to the plan. So,
Well, I move that we amend the audit plan to replace the criminal court clerk's audit with the circuit court clerk's office, considering that we have a new clerk in the circuit court.
second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Ready to vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion's adopted. All right, next item on the agenda is discussion of the audit of the Barnes Housing Trust Fund. Thank you all.
Thank you.
And Seth Hatfield has this one. There he is. You couldn't even get in here.
Good afternoon. I'm Seth Hatfield. I was the principal auditor and lead auditor on this audit of the Barnes Fund. It was released back on May 12th. I just want to recognize some of our guests. We have Ashley Brown, who's the Affordable Housing Program Manager for the Barnes Fund, Gina Manuel, the Chair of the Housing Trust Fund Commission, and Angie Hubbard, and she is the Director of the Housing Division at Planning. I just want to go over the objectives of the audit and just give you some examples of some of the things we looked at. So the first objective was just to ensure grants from the Barnes Fund are being awarded to eligible housing developers. Basically for this, we took the awards during the 2-year audit period. There's 15. We did a sample of 4, just ran through the whole process, make sure all the reviews were there for approvals, and looked at the review committee, who was on the committee, did everything go the way it was explained to us during the planning phase as far as all the internal controls. Reviewed all the payments going out of the Barnes Fund, just made sure the payments going out were actually given to people that were approved to get funding. No major issues there. So the second objective was just to ensure grants were being monitored, after the awards are made throughout the project or those monitoring activities being completed. We reviewed 7 completed homes, 8 completed renovations, just made sure those deed restrictions and cost recapture agreements were on file at the Register of Deeds. Just to make sure those, the properties were protected as far as the affordability periods were being complied with and all that. Looked at 145 completed projects, just did a cursory review using public records just to make sure that, a project wasn't completed and then it was shortly, flipped after, just to make sure those properties being used correctly. We also looked at 20 meetings held by the Housing Trust Fund Commission just to make sure that they were getting the information they needed to, effectively govern and monitor the activities of the Barnes Fund. Then finally, the third objective was just to follow up on the recommendations from the June 2019 audit of the Barnes Fund. There were 6 out of 8 recommendations we found were fully implemented. There were 2 that were partially implemented. I will note that those are now fully implemented, so they followed up with us about those. We only had 1 new observation. That was just to make sure that specific job procedures were in place for the employees. Well, that was a recommendation. We just felt they were kind of lacking as far as the procedures went. And our recommendation was to make sure they implement specific job procedures for the employees supporting the fund. And really, that was almost... we just felt like everything was running really good out there, and if there's employee turnover or they bring, the Barnes Fund continues to grow, more people come on, you want to have those procedures in place to help with training, consistency of operations, things like that. And this was a pretty clean audit. I just want to give a shout out to them because we did do an audit 2 years ago. I could tell going out there so soon that they took those recommendations seriously. They implemented them, and that's why you don't see a lot of observations here. So I really appreciate all their help and support during the audit. I'm available for any questions, and the folks at the Barnes Fund can answer anything as well.
Questions?
I don't have have any questions, and I'm sure the people from the Barnes Fund and the House knew that I could not sit here and not say anything. Because I think that the distribution of the Barnes funds is disproportionately distributed. And I understand why, because the smaller grassroots organizations don't necessarily have the capacity to do what some of the larger organizations do. And I think that's typically by design, that they are given just a small amount in order for them to do what they can do, as opposed to there being funds put in there to help build the capacity for some of those smaller grassroots organizations so they can eventually become grass tops organizations like those who are getting the funds. And I've actually attended a Bonds Fund meeting and shared these same concerns, and Ashley has just been wonderful. She has responded to every email that I've had. We've had talks over the phone, and even when we just meet up somewhere, we might have a conversation. So I appreciate the attention that has been given, but I do want to go on record that I think typically with many things that grassroots organizations are continuously staying grassroots because not enough is being invested into them to create a more equitable playing field for them when it comes to opportunities such as this.
Duly noted. Thank you. Other questions? I've got one, and it really doesn't have to do again with, I think, the audit review, but it's just looking at the list. In fall of 2019, Our Place Nashville was awarded $2 million, and it doesn't look like it's been spent, or there's nothing that's been drawn on it. And then you look at some of the ones that were awarded in spring of 2021 in the same type of thing. Obviously, with the need for all kinds of affordable housing, particularly with the Our Place Nashville. Why the delay?
May I respond?
Well, somebody has to, so I guess.
So the great thing about the Barnes Fund is that because it's a housing trust fund and we use municipal dollars versus federal or state dollars, we have the ability to be much more flexible than those funding entities. And so oftentimes what housing trust funds are designed to be is first money in. So oftentimes when proposals come to us, they haven't even entered the permitting phase. They might have already gone through pre-development work on a site, or sometimes they come to us where they have actually applied for a portion of land acquisition. So every project that we receive in proposal form is in a different status of where they're at in the development pipeline. Our Place Nashville, with what happened with them is there was a transit corridor and a planned bus stop that was actually planned to be put there, and then the bus stop was canceled. And because they partnered with Woodbine Community Organization, they were able to flip properties around so that Our Place could be all together and centralized, which is so important for their particular organization because they serve folks with IDD, and that way they can keep those folks together and close and centralized so that they have an active network there to act as support for them. However, that did delay their pipeline and their timeline overall, so that's the primary reason for the delay on that specific instance. Other delays that we see kind of frequently are due to back tax titling and those things, which are often due to how we grant land. But otherwise, if there are any major changes to the overall construction timeline, they're required to report that to the commission. And we do also have a grant extension policy where they have to report to us if they're requesting an extension on any grant timeline, all of the reasons why. We actually ask them what financials are in place, what are the delays, how long is the construction timeline, and they are presented to the commission before they are allowed to have an extension on any grant.
Okay. I think, obviously, I know sometimes these things take a while to get started, but the faster we can push these things out, the better for the city. And if they're running into problems, and so I'll talk to you at some point about particularly the bus stop that got canceled. That seems like something that, it's like we want these things moving as quickly as we can because we need the housing. Okay.
Absolutely.
Councilmember Hurt.
There was one other thing. I know that Councilmember Suara had also passed legislation that said that 20% of those funds were going to go to those small minority nonprofit organizations. I don't see any reporting of that. What's the status?
Sure, absolutely. So this report included I think it did not include the funding round after that legislation was passed. However, we've always had a subsection of funding for small organizations and nonprofits below a certain operating budget threshold. The only thing that happened after that legislation was passed is that we expanded the amount of funding for that particular subsection. In our most recent funding round, which has yet to go to council, it's currently in the status of being put together in a legislation packet for you all. We funded every single applicant in that subsection completely by recommendation of our external review committee, which said we want to make sure that those subsections that are categorized as priority are funded in completion before we fund anything in a large funding pool, so that way they're not competing against each other based on size or scale.
That's a good thing. And the other thing have you all considered possibly offering some assistance when it comes to paying the taxes for some of or providing some assistance for some of the smaller organizations? It's considering the fact of how the value of homes has increased in some instances 200% for some of those organizations, because it was at once upon a time it might have been a $1,200 tax bill is now a $4,200 a year tax bill, and that would always offer some support, especially for those that are truly providing affordable housing. I mean, where you're saying that they're getting rent less than $1,500 a month for a 3-bedroom place, and that's almost unheard of now in Nashville. So, and I do know that they exist, where they are committed to truly serving affordable housing and not doing any market rate. But I know that there could be some assistance provided that would be well welcomed.
I think Angie's jumping at the bit, so I'll let her take that one.
We are happy to work with Metro Legal to see to the extent to how Barnes funds can be used to address those tax issues. That is something we hear a lot from the nonprofits on what we can do that for the subsequent homeowner, but also finding other programs like the Housing Fund has tax assistance programs, and also making sure our qualifying older adult populations take advantage of the programs through the assessor's office. So there are lots of opportunities for us to be more proactive in that space.
Right, I know that's for individuals, but I'm specifically speaking of some of those smaller nonprofit organizations that may have 5, 6, or 7 homes, and they're providing affordable housing specifically and stipulated by federal funds for which they received in order to.
So they're retaining ownership then of
Yes.
those properties. We will look into all of that and the extent to which Barnes funds can be utilized.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Any other questions on the Barnes Fund? Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay. So I don't think we don't need to do anything on that. That's just information. The next one is, this is on a follow-up on an audit with the Nashville Beer Permit Board. Ms. Reilly, you ready?
With us, we have the director of the Beer Board, Benton McDonough, and as well as Innocent Dog B, who's out in the hallway, who performed this follow-up. Just real quick, We did an audit of the beer board back in December of 2020. That audit resulted in 5 recommendations. All were accepted by the beer board, and all were eventually reported to us as being implemented. We went back out and looked at their implementation and found that 4 were fully implemented. 1 was partially implemented, and it was around doing daily reconciliations. The limitation on that was just that the documentation had not been retained for us to really test it. Before this report was issued, they were starting to retain the documentation. We just now have to give them time to have it operating for a little bit before we quickly can go back out there and make sure that it's implemented. But that was the results of that, if there's any questions.
Any questions?
I work with the beer board again, too. But I don't have any questions.
You don't have any questions? Mr. McDonough, any questions for us? Good. All right.
I know to keep my...
All right. We'll move on. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next one is discussion of the audit of Metropolitan Nashville Public Schools regarding the procurement process. And that's Bill.
Good afternoon. Good to be with you guys today. Our office last week issued a report on the school's procurement process. Specifically, we looked at purchases made over $10,000 in various travel-related expenses. We'd like to recognize real quickly, we've got Innocent Darby, who was a senior auditor, who did the work. Appreciate his efforts. Also, we have Kevin Edwards, who is the director of the procurement department. He's been in that role since July 1st. Jeff Gossage, who's been with Metro for years, had that position before, and he's retired. So we appreciate the work that they did for us. Simply stated, the objectives are pretty straightforward. Basically, are the goods and services that Metro schools that they're purchasing, are they done so in accordance with various laws, procurement code, things of that nature? And keep in mind that those are in place to make sure that we're purchasing things, getting the best value for our dollar. Another thing we looked at was a diversity business enterprise program, which is making sure that solicitations that had been issued were meeting the objectives of that program. And what we found, they have a very knowledgeable staff. They are in good faith trying to meet the requirements of the procurement code, applicable laws and regulations. Innocent, I know, looked at 42 requests for proposals, 20 invitations to bid. I believe it was 40 travel-related expenses and 17 sold purchases. Those generally met the rules that you'd expect to see. They have an appeals process. In terms of recommendations, we had 5. 1 was high risk, 2 were medium risk, and 2 were low risk. The high risk had to do with vendor insurance liability requirements. So you sign a contract. Within that contract, our vendors are required to have insurance, hold a certain amount of insurance to protect us from various claims. Well, the first year, those were good because that before we'll duly execute a contract, you have to have that before our legal department will sign off. Well, subsequent years, we have an outside vendor who monitors that to make sure they're supposed to be monitoring that to make sure that the insurance is maintained. Innocent looked at 78 different contracts. I think 43 did not have over 55% did not have that subsequent year. So we're just saying, make sure you have some system in place to monitor to make sure those subsequent years are we're receiving the liability insurance. The next 2 have to do with the Diversity Business Enterprise Program. One control that they have hired an outside vendor who basically administers the DBE program. One thing, early in the scope, the communication could have been improved. It was fixed. It was fixed about July of 2019. What was happening is you have a lot of DB-type activity that occurs with construction capital projects, and so the solicitations were being sent from the Facilities and Construction Department, but some of that information was not timely or it wasn't complete. They recognized that it's actually better for procurement to handle all that type of those solicitations, so that it has improved. But it's been fixed, but there was a time period within our scope that problem was present. We've also recommended that they give Sims, who is our outside consultant, give them direct access to our systems that they can run their own reports. Because part of what they're doing too is not all solicitations are eligible for diversity business enterprise. Let's say you're a sole source or whatnot. So just let them go, have all the information and let them go through and whatnot. The second one has to do with community outreach. And there's two flavors to community outreach. You've got your industry specific. So let's say you're a plumber or you're an electrician and there's a construction project. You're made aware of that project so you can participate in that process. There's also community-wide. Now, when you talk to the people in procurement, you talk to SIM, they'll tell you the real actions in that industry specific. That's what people prefer. That's where most of your activity comes from. However, they don't really have a lot of guidance in terms of how many community-wide outreach programs you need to have. So that's important. So let's say you're first generation American or whatnot, and you're not aware that the DBE programs exist. It lets them be aware that those are out there. And then your final two have to do with standard operating procedures. They have them, but just beef them up a little bit. And then the second one has to do, you have policies which are coming down from the state, and then you have individual policies and procedures. And you want to make sure those are in alignment with each other. They're doing a review, but there was no physical evidence of that, so we're just going to make sure you put the physical evidence in there. So
Okay.
that's it in a nutshell. If there are any questions, or we're happy to take them.
Any questions for Bill? Councilmember Hurt?
I don't have any questions, but I'm not sure. I mean, I understand the auditing and how we look at things to make sure that they're doing things the right way. But are we doing the right things? Because we look at the fact that there's 13% DBE, so that means that there is 87% going somewhere else. And I have also studied some of the contracting that MNPS has done, and especially that they do with the DBEs are generally services, not real professional contracting and providing them with the contracts. So there may be a number of $500,000 contracts as opposed to some that receive $15 million contracts. So it is small and spread out over a number of people, where you have those larger contracts going to or institutions or businesses. So where I spoke about the capacity building for those nonprofits, it's the same thing with the small businesses, that they're not giving them enough contract in order for them to become a primary contractor. So they keep them as a secondary or subprime contractor. And we've got to do better than this. I mean, 13%. I think we need to at least provide the same type of contracting. I think Metro says that when they award a contract that they should have at least 20% minority participation. And we should see this across the board. And personally, I think it should look more like the population of what the city is. And that would be more upwards toward 27, 28% of those contracts. And we're not going to get into women-owned business.
We don't have time for that.
Okay, thank you.
No, I think everything you're saying is important, and so she's saying what I think we all believe, and I think I understand exactly what you're saying, because if small businesses only get small amounts of the contracts, they
will stay small.
And so you want to give plenty of opportunities. So welcome to the new job. We appreciate it. And are your eyes okay? You've been reading lots and lots of documents.
Yes. So I appreciate your comment about the numbers, but it stems from the fact that the procurement code, the policies that they follow, they don't have any metrics as to, okay, this is MNPS procurement policy. We expect to have minimum 20% of our procurement going to the minority. They don't have. So we just put those numbers there for everybody to see how they compared. Secondly, MMPS does not necessarily follow Metro Procurement Code. So that's another thing. We went through that during the audit, and again, there was nothing for us to be able to, because they're not in their policies, and we cannot reference Metro Code, Procurement Code related to that. The other one regarding the exposure, the percentage is the outreach. The outreach program has to be enhanced, because if the minorities don't know that these opportunities exist, they are not going to be able to, come in and get to improve those 13% or 15% percentage.
Well, 13% looks better than what I've seen in the past. I've looked at it for some time now, and 13% is better than what they've had before. But we have to do better, even if we don't have it in our compliance documents for it. But we just got to do better. The rest of us the best of us got to help the rest of us, and we just need to make sure we're intentional about doing so, and not that we are having to be forced to do it. It should be a choice.
Kelly.
I'm not sure who this is a question for, but if the compliance benchmarks don't exist, wouldn't they at a minimum be in the contract with the third-party vendor? Otherwise, how do you know if that vendor's performing if you haven't set any criteria for them to achieve?
We're talking about that with Sims regarding the DBE. So that is one where I know Sims has really kind of helped establish, she's been doing this, I know, for many, many years, of establishing kind of the benchmark that is out there. There aren't necessarily, I know, in comparison to Metro General Government, because I did work for their procurement before going over to schools, we did have more specific solicitation requirements where we were setting maybe minimums. She does work with us on the specific solicitations where it's like maybe a large construction, or building a new school or adding an addition to a school, that we do look at the individual market. She looks at what the kind of open participation is within that market, and we have started establishing those minimum requirements, saying we must hit 20% for a particular project, and in fact we actually incentivize and give more points the higher that they go, to where it's kind of establishing whoever sets the highest bar receives the most points, and the rest are kind of prorated in comparison to that. But it is one that we are starting to see higher numbers from what we have seen in the past. One thing I wanted to say is, you were talking about the intentionality behind it. We've certainly taken the audit recommendations from Innocent and Bill to the point where earlier today we actually participated in the governor's office diversity business-to-business networking, and we were able to present to, I think, around 60 different individual companies regarding how to do business with MNPS and some upcoming solicitation opportunities that are coming up in the school year. So I would hope to see that number continue to increase to be more in line with the city diversity, as you mentioned.
Right. In fact, when I started to see the numbers increase was when Ms. Sims was hired on as a contractor with him.
And a lot of that has stemmed from the switch of what Bill was saying of the facilities department kind of managing their own solicitations to now being under procurement. Our department houses kind of the expertise in how to consistently work with Gwen and make sure that she's involved throughout the entire process.
Yes.
I'm going to turn the channel if you're done with this topic. I mean, I'm staying in this audit. But
okay.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
On B1, the insurance compliance, is the external consultant's sole function to monitor insurance, and they weren't doing it?
It is vendor compliance, so it's also doing initial background checks, kind of checking to see are they debarred on like the sam.gov debarment. So there's multiple checks throughout that, but insurance compliance is one component of the vendor compliance services they provide.
Are they still our vendor? I mean,
We, since that time, have conducted a formal solicitation and acquired an official executed contract with them. They are the selected vendor, but from that time and when we went through the RFP process, we wanted to ensure enhanced compliance. The reporting information was going to somebody who was no longer with them in PS. We've now made it to where all of our contract agents have access to be able to see the system, to see who's in compliance. Myself and the management team receive a monthly update regarding who is still in compliance and who is out of compliance, as well as worked with the vendor to see what are the follow-up communications that they send. They kind of do a first, second, and third notice and then kind of get to a final notice before they say you're no longer in compliance with that. But we have seen significant improvements since the time of the audit period with them.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Sure you'll be back. Not in a bad way. We love seeing people from the schools. All right, so the next one is discussion of the audit of the Davidson County Agricultural Extension Office. Ms. Reilly, what's yours?
Unfortunately, the director of the Ag Extension, Elizabeth Sanders, is not able to be with us tonight, and she is helping with the Nashville Fair and many of the events that the Ag Extension Center sponsors there, like speech competitions and
So
other
this
things.
is an ad for the fair to attend.
If you want to have any questions. then-
Ms. Toombs and I have been there. Yep. That's right. Have you been to the fair?
It's good. My kids
You
enjoy
should
it.
go. It was good. Yeah. Goes on through this weekend.
But this audit was put on our audit plan because we have not been to the Ag Extension Center in about 12 years. It's a small department. It has very unique funding where it is actually funded. It is funded by Metro, but it's also funded by the University of Tennessee Institute of Agriculture, as well as Tennessee State University. Now, UT does a lot of the physical compliance audits for them, so we took a different approach to this one where we looked at what services are they offering to Davidson County. They're tasked with offering many different, not just rural services to Davidson County, but they have some employees that are funded by federal dollars to provide low-income or programs and classes for low-income individuals, as well as they do a lot of gardening and they visit farms and other things like that. So we took the approach of looking at those services. The first objective of this audit was to look at whether or not those services are accessible. They are supposed to be providing these services across Davidson County. Are they providing them across Davidson County in a form that everybody in Davidson County can actually enjoy them? The second one is, are the services that are being provided tailored to Davidson County? There's an Ag Extension Center in all 95 counties of Tennessee. So are the services being offered here tailored to Davidson County and not to every other county in the state? The third one was, are customers satisfied with those services? There's many different programs, and so whether or not customer satisfaction is being met is important. And then the last one is they have agents that do a bunch of different things. They offer a multitude of classes. So are those agents properly trained to actually offer those classes? What we found, the first thing is that one, customers are extremely satisfied. The ones that responded to our survey had glowing reviews. We didn't get anything less than a 5 out of 5. We also surveyed the employees. These are some employees that love their jobs. They love what they do and they love spreading information about them. And then they're well trained. They get multiple hours of training every year so that they can provide so many different services, even at the request of a certain class, even if it's not on their plan. There were some areas to improve. We had 4 observations that resulted in 6 recommendations. The first one was every year they put together an annual plan that says these are the classes we're going to offer. We've gotten community input, we've gotten board input, things that they have seen. They make a plan and they have goals. And then at the end of the year, they make an impact statement. How many people did we impact? What were the results of internal surveys that they did? Both great things, but they never compare them. So how do you know if you're meeting your goals if you aren't actually comparing to what your goals are? Additionally, many of their programs have been around for a long time. So you think about 4-H and other classes that are offered, but they aren't looking at the results of those classes year over year. So are these programs growing? Are they declining? Do we need to change something about them so that we get better input or we get better interest in those? So that was one of our observations. The next one was related to where they're putting their programs. The Ag Extension Center doesn't have a very big budget, so they tend to go where they can find free space. Understandably, they work a lot in community centers, which is great because we have community centers throughout Davidson County. They also work with 4-H, which is in the schools. But at no point do they kind of map it out. And so what we did was we asked them, where do you offer classes? Which kind of leads into the next observation, but we had some difficulty getting that. So we look on social media, we look on their website. We asked them to kind of tell us about where they usually go. And so we mapped it out. And you start to look at the map that's in the report, and it's not everywhere. It's kind of centralized, as you'd expect. Much of the population is in the center of Davidson County, but at the same time, there's areas that need programs. They need to be accessible to everybody. This third observation was around the documentation that they maintain. They do have a system where they record their encounters with individuals, but it's usually just numbers. It's not who attended, which could lead to liability issues if you don't have who attended a class and somebody gets hurt. But also, it makes it much harder to ensure that those numbers are accurate when we can't go back behind them and make sure that there truly was a class on this day, or that you contacted this person so we can survey them to make sure that it's accurate. So we recommended that they have better documentation. And the last one is about accessibility through language. All of their programs are offered in English. Ms. Sanders is very open to the fact that they can offer services in different languages. They've never had a request. So they're operating under assuming that somebody will ask for a program in a different language. But it's not advertised anywhere. And there are multiple languages spoken across Davidson County. So at least ensuring that it's out there so people can see it in multiple languages, so that if they know that they can actually request those classes, whether it's a canning class or whether it's a SNAP benefit class, they need to be able to know how to ask to have one done, even if the Ag Extension Center is open to doing them. So that was that audit. Are there any questions?
To say, as part of my job as Director of Finance and doing the budget prep and having to meet with all 50 departments, did not know what this was, but at the end of having a conversation with the director, I was ready to go become a 4-H student, and it is, to your point, the most passionate group that I've engaged with since I've been here. And for a mighty team, if that's the worst you could find, I think that speaks volumes to what they're able to pull off. So, and I don't give kudos out almost ever.
I know, I'm amazed. I say we adjourn right now and go out there and find them some additional space. Okay. Anything else? Okay. All right, so next one is our annual self-assessment. Yes. Okay. So do I turn that over to you?
Turn it over to me, if you would like to, or you can.
Well, I don't know how to do it, so you can do it.
So every year, we take the audit committee's bylaws and we check to make sure that they were executed as intended. And that means, were there meetings every quarter? Were the minutes posted? Was there oversight of the external auditor? Was there appointment of the Metropolitan Auditor? As you can see from the assessment done, everything was met for the year.
Do we have to do anything?
No.
Okay, does that take care of the self-assessment and the bylaws?
It doesn't take care of the bylaws. The
Okay,
bylaws.
tell me about the bylaws.
The bylaws y'all review every year and determine if there's any changes you'd like to make to them. This is if there's any instances where you thought something should be added or changed or adjusted. I don't think it's been about 2 years since the last change that we've made. Changes can happen throughout the year, so it's not like even if they're reviewed and approved today that no changes can happen, so they can still happen after this. But this is just our annual review of them, or deferral until the next meeting if people need more time to review.
So we can change them, we can bring them up at any time. Do you need a motion motion every year to approve them?
Yes.
Do y'all want to, I know that Brack is not here and Tom's not here. Is it worth deferring to the next meeting so they can actually chime in as well? Kelly, you're getting to say something.
I don't expect that I'm going to have any proposed changes to the bylaw.
I don't think any of us are, but just to
But
be.
maybe.
But just to be nice, maybe we should
Well,
wait.
just a
for
question.
We don't know what's going to come up next, and, put off to date,
Yeah.
put off to tomorrow.
Yeah, I want to always kick things. I don't. What were you going to say?
The only thing I could think of was the process by which we selected the auditor, which we all agree was painful. That's charter, right? That's not the bylaw. That's charter. Yeah, then
Okay.
offer.
Do you all want to approve them tonight, or would you?
Yes.
Oh, you do? Okay. All right. So are there any proposed changes to the bylaws? No. If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the bylaws.
I move that we approve the bylaws as
I got a motion and a second.
As written. Okay.
Is that okay? We're good?
Yeah.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. You adopt. Okay. All right. Now it's the auditor's annual performance review. All right, so I'll handle that one. So I think, Terry, you were in charge of sending out stuff to everybody and getting their scores. How many people submitted, did what they were supposed to do?
Yes.
So this is the
Majority, how about that?
A majority did. So this is the review of our auditor. I would say that I did it, but like I normally do, right on time.
Very much so. You were the first response.
Came in right when I was sitting there, and I did it right then, so that I could say that I did it first. It's the only time I think I've done anything really on time. So anyway, so are you supposed to give us a report on how our auditor did?
So yes, as y'all are familiar with the Metropolitan Auditor Performance Review Form, which is a basic form that we've used for several years. Maybe developed by Mark originally, and kind of breaks down a lot of the functions of the job of the Metropolitan Auditor into some categories: independence, objectivity, and ethical issues, competency, the audit committee relationship, audit plan development and execution, creating a good work environment for the team, continuous improvement. And then there are 22 questions in all divided up into those categories. And so each person has an opportunity, or each committee member has an opportunity to score between 1 and 3 for all of those questions. So a perfect score is 66. And in this case, I just sort of averaged them. So like the average score for Ms. Reilly's performance was
70.
Close. It was 65. So if you break that down, then like out of like 3, what number that is 2.95. So very high score.
Congratulations.
Been called that many times.
Well, I guess what I would say is that you can always do better.
It's like somebody gave
Not
me
much,
one.
but
2.95.
It's like somebody gave me a 1, 2.
somebody
When
probably
there were no
came around.
ones, there was not a single one.
There was not a single one. Okay. All right. Okay. Congratulations, Will.
Thank you. Well, and then also, it's a 360 review.
Oh, the staff also.
Yes, Bill also sent out a survey to the staff.
Stellar, just like with you guys. Everybody, out of a score, this was a scale of 5,
Yeah.
and her score was a 4.7. So if you multiply that by 2, if you're doing this by 10,
Right.
she'd be like a 9.4.
Right.
So I mean, it's just really good scores.
You wouldn't
Very
win
good
the Olympic gold,
comments.
but you would be close. Okay.
I'll take some.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, let me see what else we've got. I'm trying to watch our time. So, old business, report on Nashville General Hospital.
This will need to be deferred another meeting. I received some documentation from Ms. Groves last Tuesday from a request back in June, and haven't had a chance to go through it to write anything up or to draw any conclusions. So I cannot speak to what was sent to me.
Okay, so we'll have it ready
Next time.
at the next meeting. Any questions from anybody?
is there any additional information that you're waiting on? Do you have anything?
I've started to go through it. There's some questions I know that from the brief time I've had with it to go through it that I'll probably have to get with Julie, but it's not, we're getting lower and lower and less and less.
Okay.
We'd like to talk about it probably at the next meeting, so make sure we get everything in. Okay. All right, let's see what else I've got. Internal audit project status, other administrative matters.
Yeah, we can go through this pretty fast. We had recommendation implementation. We had 5 that were implemented. 2 had to have revised dates for reasons such as rescheduling of a procurement board meeting and the supply chain issues related to a system. Ongoing projects, we have 11 projects that are currently ongoing. 4 of them are in draft reporting phase. We've issued 9 reports out of our 17 for goal for the year. Are you raising your hand?
I think so. Are we on this? Is that what you're talking about?
For that's the work plan. The page before is what our status of all the reports that we've done.
Am I ahead of myself, or is this not?
Well, this is just kind of to show you where we are on the work plan. What typically happens with our audit work plan is we will start everything by the end of the year, but most of it will not be completed, and it kind of carries into the next year.
I just have a question on one specific, so if now's the time to ask that, let me know. Or
You can ask them.
For number 11, the coronavirus refund spending process.
Yes.
Obviously, there's been interest for the MNPS component, and that's big, right? Like,
Yes.
You've got Metro General money, MNPS money.
Yep.
Are you going to try and do all of that in this one, or are you trying to piece that out?
So what we've done is we've kicked off the Metro piece of it to work with Mary Jo before she takes a little bit of leave. So we've gone on and kicked off the Metro piece of that. Once our auditors on that get through the planning phase, the senior on it is going to go kick off the one at MNPS, so that then we can have staff working on Metros while we also then have MNPS's piece going on as well, with hopes to eventually then go into WeGo to look at theirs as well.
Yeah, I didn't.
But yes, it's all going to be
all going to be
in there. Yeah, it's just kind of it's a tiered approach because of trying to get Metros piece done as fast as we can.
Thank you.
So it is interesting to me is, that you brought that up with Metro General and MNPS, because we know those 2 subjects in question are persons of color, and the distribution of the funds in which they received is small compared to other funds that have been distributed, and there is not the same type of aggression towards ensuring that those funds were spent properly, which is concerning to me as well.
Okay.
Let's see. Next is our budget status. We've only used about 8% of our budget. That's a little bit misleading because we've got consultants that just submitted July and August invoices, so we're actually right about our 15% for our 10 or 15% of spending for the year. We have 2 vacancies that we're hoping to post soon, but outside of internal audit staffing, what the audit committee will see is that unfortunately Terry is at her last meeting with us as legal is shifting some things around. So she's staying at Metro.
But the good news is Nikki Ecke will be your attorney going forward. So you will do excellent
They're
maintenance.
bored with Nikki.
Well, I'd written it down to say something at the end, but that's okay.
Well, I told you that's what I was going to bring.
I don't remember.
And Ms. Ecke is here as well as Courtney Mohan, so they obviously going to be glad to take over going forward.
Well, welcome, and you've done an excellent job. Thank you. Nikki just dropped all her files. Not a good sign.
I can't say enough good things about Nikki. She's one of my favorite colleagues. She is so experienced and knowledgeable. I go to her with questions all the time, and she always helps me. So you are very good again.
That's very kind of you.
Yes, and she's very patient.
All right, so does that complete our regular agenda, but we need to go into executive session? All right, so what I'm going to need is a motion to adjourn, but then do I need a motion to go also to go into? Can you do it at the same time?
I guess.
All right, do you see what I'm saying? We need to go into special session.
So I move that we adjourn the regular meeting of the audit.
And then you can continue on.
And then go into full session of executive session.
That's right. Okay, do I have a second? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That motion is adopted, so we stand adjourned, and
And we do need to make sure. I've got his phone number. MNN is no longer recorded.
I can call him.
This has been a service of the
Just out of formality, I'm going to go ahead and shut the door, even though we're all in.
it went yellow.
For more information on this and other programs,
Well, is it that one or that one?
Say which one is it?
.gov.
So